Natasha Henry Peterson descended the marble staircase of the Lecky mansion like a queen surveying her court. Sunlight poured through double-height windows, catching the sparkle of her diamond ear cuffs. In the foyer, Treasure Blake adjusted a silver serving tray, hoping to remain invisible. "Good morning, Ma," Treasure said, head bowed. Natasha's scarlet lips curved into a sneer. "Morning? It's nearly noon, and that vase is crooked. Do I pay you to decorate crooked?" Treasure straightened the vase. "I'm sorry, Ma." "Sorry," Natasha sing-songed. "If you're sorry now, imagine how you'll feel when you're unemployed." She swept past, perfume lingering like smoke. In the breakfast room, Alan Peterson sat over a cooling cup of tea, scrolling through reports on his tablet. His gentle smile appeared when Treasure entered. "Thank you for setting up, Treasure," he whispered. She nodded shyly. "Sir, your croissants are warm." "I made sure." Before Alan could reply, Natasha stormed in. "Warm croissants? Warm? I said piping hot." She jabbed a manicured finger at Treasure, who flinched. Alan's voice remained calm. "Nat, they're fine. Sit and eat." Natasha laughed sharply. "Don't tell me what's fine, darling. Stick to coding apps." She knocked Alan's tablet shut, nearly catching his fingers. Treasure retreated, cheeks burning. Alan reopened the tablet, silence hanging like a cracked mirror. That evening, the Petersons hosted investors for cocktails beside the rooftop pool. Lagos lights glittered over the lagoon. A soft evening breeze carried Afrobeats from distant yachts. Treasure moved through the crowd with a tray of wine. "Be sure Mrs. Peterson's glass stays full," the butler warned. Treasure approached Natasha, who wore an emerald gown that flowed like venom. "Madam, white or red?" Natasha examined the goblet. "Where's my ice?" "1 cube, exactly 1. "I'm sorry, Ma." Natasha slapped the tray. Glasses rattled. "Is precision too hard for your village brain?" Guest froze. Alan stepped forward. "Natasha, please." "Shut up, Alan." She seized a glass of red wine. "Watch closely, Treasure. This is how mistakes stain." She hurled the wine. Scarlet liquid splashed across Treasure's uniform, dripping down her collar, stinging her eyes. Guest gasped. Treasure blinked back tears, but kept her posture. Alan's face paled. "That's enough." Natasha's laugh was icy. "Enough? We're just starting." Treasure whispered, "Excuse me," and hurried toward the kitchen, crimson trailing behind her on the tiles. Alan followed, but Natasha blocked him. "Let her learn, darling. Servants need fear." Alan met her gaze, voice trembling. "What you call fear, I call cruelty." Natasha arched a brow. Big word from someone who can't even keep his wife satisfied. The crowd pretended to admire city lights, discomfort crackling in the air. Alan's hands clenched, then relaxed. He rejoined the party, mask of composure slipping over wounded eyes. Near the pantry door, Treasure wiped her face, breathing through the burn, whispering, "Survive, just survive." Outside, laughter resumed, sharp, brittle, echoing over Lecky as night swept in. Alan Peterson always kept 2 sets of car keys on a small teak tray in the foyer, one for his matte black Range Rover, the other for Natasha's pearl-white Maserati. On Monday morning, the Range Rover was blocked in by a landscaping truck, so he took the Maserati, meaning to return before Natasha noticed. But Lagos traffic snarled, a board meeting ran long, and Natasha arrived home first. She stood in the cavernous living room, arms folded beneath an ivory blazer. The late afternoon sun flared through glass doors, painting her silhouette in molten gold. Natasha's voice cut the silence. "Where's my car, Alan?" He lifted the Maserati keyring. The Jeep was trapped. "I only drove to the office. My car is not a taxi." Her heels clicked across marble. "Did you at least wipe your grubby fingerprints off the steering wheel?" Alan kept his tone gentle. "Nat, it's the same will you hold." "Don't mock me." Natasha snatched a crystal lamp from the console table and hurled it. The base brushed Alan's shoulder, shattering against a bookshelf. Shards rang like tiny bells on the floor. Alan inhaled, gripping his arm where the porcelain had grazed him. Natasha's gaze flicked to the thin line of blood blooming on his shirt sleeve. A strange satisfaction warmed her smile. Next time, she hissed, ask permission before touching what's mine. She turned on her heel and strode upstairs, leaving the sitting room littered with fragments. When dawn brightened Lecky Lagoon the next day, Natasha left early to supervise a boutique launch in Victoria Island. The mansion settled into quiet. Alan padded into the kitchen, shirt sleeve rolled up, a purple bruise spreading beneath the tiny cut. Treasure Blake, folding table napkins, gasped. "Sir, you're hurt." "It's nothing," Alan murmured. Treasure fetched a first aid box. They settled at the breakfast island, warm scent of rising ajij bread filling the space. Treasure cleaned the cut with saline, her touch feather soft. Alan winced. "You have gentle hands." "Practice," she said. "Orphans learn to patch scrapes without wasting bandages." He offered a half smile. "Tell me about the orphanage." Treasure shrugged. "Old benches, chip bowls, but plenty of singing. Sister Amaka made sure we knew joy costs nothing." Alan laughed. An easy, boyish sound Treasure had never heard from him. "I could use that lesson." She fastened a plaster. "There, bruise will fade." "Thank you." He flexed his shoulder, surprised by how much lighter it felt. Over the next week, Alan canceled 2 overseas trips, claiming remote work is fine. Natasha barely noticed. She was filming product reels and attending galas. In her absence, the mansion breathed. One afternoon, rain drummed on the skylights. Alan wandered to the estate kitchen, drawn by high-life music and the aroma of peppery stew. Treasure danced while stirring a pot, hips swaying beneath a simple apron. Alan lingered in the doorway. "May I join?" She jumped and laughed. "Only if you respect chef rules." "Teach me." "First, wash your hands. Hygiene above all." He complied, rolling sleeves. Treasure pressed a wooden spoon into his grip. "Gentle circles. Let the stew simmer. Don't bully it." Alan mimicked her motion. Steam curled upward, fragrant with tomatoes and adorodo. A reggae remix of Fella's Water No Get Enemy played from Treasure's phone. Alan hummed along, surprising himself with the lyrics. "You know Afrobeat?" Treasure asked. "University days in Abaddon," he said. Roommate blasted it 24/7. Their laughter mingled with the music and the hiss of simmering sauce. When the stew thickened, they tasted from the same spoon, Treasure shyly, Alan with boyish delight. "This is incredible," he breathed. "Secret ingredient. Roasted IRU, Treasure whispered. "Write the recipe," Alan pleaded. "I'll pay." Treasure shook her head. "Friendship is enough payment." Alan's chest tightened. "Friendship," he echoed, tasting the unfamiliar word on his tongue. Evenings became small rituals. Treasure showed Alan how to hand sew a missing button. He showed her how to use his grand piano's record function. They discovered they both loved sod. Treasure's soft soprano blended with Alan's baritone as they harmonized to Sweetest Taboo, their voices echoing in the atrium like shared secrets. Sometimes the bruise on Alan's shoulder throbbed when he laughed too hard. Treasure would press arnica gel on it, scolding, "Rest, sir." At those times, Alan studied her face, the steady eyes, the kindness etched into every freckle, and wondered how a heart so big fit in such a slender frame. One night, Alan sat at his walnut desk, overhead lights dimmed. Wind rattled palm fronds outside. He opened a leather-bound journal, a gift from Natasha he had never used because she mocked sentimental scribbling. Now the blank pages felt like rescued land. Entry 1. The cut on my shoulder is minor. The cut inside my chest is deeper. Yet today someone poured balm on it with nothing but laughter and soup. Her name is Treasure. How fitting. Entry 2. Treasure's dream is to design clothes. She sketched a gown on baking paper, flowing Ankara layers like ocean waves. I wanted to frame it. Entry 3. Realization. Peace isn't a concept. Peace is a face. Almond eyes, gentle voice, fearless kindness. How did I never notice? He closed the journal, heartbeat quickening. Outside, headlights swept the driveway, Natasha returning. Alan hid the notebook in a drawer, but the thoughts refused to stay buried. Saturday afternoon brought clear skies and a rare silence. Natasha was away shooting a magazine cover in Abuja. Alan and Treasure carried glasses of chilled Zobo onto the back patio. Lagoon water glittered. Egrets skimmed the surface. Treasure sipped and sighed. I used to dream houses like this were planets only rich people could visit. Alan glanced around, shrugging. Most days it feels like a pretty cage. Treasure studied him. A cage can open if you find the right key. What if the key is lost? Then you make one, she said simply. Or you teach yourself to fly. He set his glass down. Treasure, do you ever fear consequences for talking to me like this? I fear many things. Failing, starving again, but not kindness. Never kindness. Alan smiled, so wide it hurt. You're braver than any board member I know. Later they drifted inside. Treasure paused at the grand hallway. Eyes on a cracked porcelain figure lying among the shards of the lamp Natasha had smashed. May I? She asked. Alan nodded. She knelt, gathering broken pieces. Kintsugi, she murmured. Japanese art of mending with gold. Makes the great part of the story. Do you know how? Not yet, she admitted, but I can learn. Alan watched her cradle the fragments. For the first time, the broken lamp looked less like a symbol of rage and more like a promise of repair. That night, Alan wrote again. Entry 4. Today the mansion felt alive. Laughter bounced off marble walls. We talk about fear, about flight. Treasure doesn't own wings, yet she lifts me. I dread Natasha's return. Not for another bruise, but because I will have to hide this light. He tapped the pen, then continued. I am married to a storm, but storms end. And when they end, the earth smells new. If my future still includes Natasha, it must also include sunlight, music, and stew that tastes like home. He closed the journal, no longer ashamed of the tears that dotted the last line. In the hush of the master's suite, he lay awake, replaying Treasure's laugh, her fearless talk of keys and wings. Outside, the city slept, unaware that a billionaire's heart had begun to beat to a different rhythm, one stitched together softly by a maid who believed in mending what others let shatter. Treasure's laughter drifted through the herb garden, mingling with the scent of basil and wet earth. Alan stood beside her, trimming stubborn branches from a hibiscus bush. It was early afternoon. Natasha was supposed to be at a brand strategy seminar until evening. Treasure brushed soil from her cheek. Alan's hand moved instinctively, thumb grazing her skin. Their eyes met, warm, certain. For weeks they had shared stolen smiles and late-night music. Now words felt too small. Alan leaned forward, heart hammering, and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. Treasure melted, fingers curling into his shirt. A breeze rustled the palms overhead, as if blessing them. The garden gate slammed. Natasha's voice, high and sharp, knifed through the quiet. Alan Peterson. They broke apart. Natasha strode down the stone path in stilettos, tablet in hand, hair still perfect from the shoot. Her eyes blazed as she took in their clasped fingers. Treasure stepped back. Madam, shut your mouth. Natasha pointed at her. You, a servant. She turned to Alan, voice quivering with fury. I leave you for 6 hours, and you start groping the help like a cheap soap opera prince. Alan kept his tone calm. Natasha, lower your voice. Let's talk inside. Inside, she scoffed, where you share more body heat with your pet charity case. Treasure whispered, Ma, please, I never. I said silence. Natasha's hand shot out, shoving Treasure against the planter. Soil spilled, terracotta cracked. Alan stepped between them. Don't touch her. Natasha's laugh was brittle. Oh, you defend her now? You can have the gutter girl, Alan, but you'll pay. Alan exhaled slowly. I'm done with threats. I'll move to the guest wing until lawyers handle things. He reached for Treasure's trembling hand. Natasha's gaze followed, pupils contracting. The sight of their fingers interlaced snapped the last thread of her control. She hissed, You think you can walk away? Watch me, Alan replied softly. He guided Treasure toward the path that led back to the house. Natasha's stilettos clicked after them. Everybody will know what a spineless fraud you are. You ruin our brand, our marriage, for her voice dripped contempt, dust. Alan paused at the lawn's edge. He faced her, shoulders relaxed. Natasha, look at yourself. You're drowning in anger, and I won't drown with you. He turned again. The dismissal felt like a slap. Natasha's breath grew ragged. A pulse throbbed in her neck. She spun on her heel, storming toward the driveway where her black Mercedes G-Wagon gleamed. Housekeepers peered from patio doors, unsure whether to intervene. Treasure clutched Alan's arm. She's furious. Let's stay inside, call security. Let's keep moving, Alan murmured. Calm will win. Behind them, the SUV engine roared. Tires screeched against cobblestone. Alan and Treasure looked back just as the G-Wagon shot forward, fishtailing. She's heading for us, Treasure cried. Alan shoved Treasure sideways into a line of shrubs. The SUV missed her by inches, skidded, then halted. Livid, Natasha jammed the gear into reverse. Natasha, stop! Alan shouted, palms up. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked through the rear windshield, his pleading, hers wild. Then the SUV lurched backward. Alan had no time to jump clear. The bumper slammed into his knees. The world flipped. He hit the cobblestones, breath ripped from his lungs, and the heavy tire rolled over his lower torso before the vehicle finally braked. Treasure screamed. Gardeners ran, shouting for help. Natasha sat frozen behind the wheel, both hands shaking on leather, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Treasure dropped beside Alan. Blood seeped through his shirt. His breaths were shallow but present. Stay with me, sir. Please stay. Alan blinked, pain flooding every nerve. Treasure, he rasped, call. Ambulance. She fumbled for her phone, hands slick with rainwater and tears. Natasha stumbled out of the SUV, staring at the crimson smear on the driveway. I didn't mean. He stepped he shouldn't. The butler blocked her path, voice like ice. Madam, move away. Now. Sirens wailed within minutes. Medics slid Alan onto a spine board. Treasure maintained a death grip on his hand until they loaded him into the ambulance. A police officer approached Natasha. Ma'am, you're coming with us. We need a statement downtown. Natasha's lipstick had smeared. She looked suddenly small. He's my husband. Precisely, the officer said, guiding her to a patrol car. Doors shut with a final, heavy thump. Lagos University Teaching Hospital, emergency ward. Monitors beeped. Antiseptic hung in the air. Treasure sat beside Alan's bed, disposable gown rustling. Doctors had stabilized him. Fractured pelvis, internal bleeding, but he would live. She brushed damp curls from his forehead. Alan's eyelids fluttered open. Still here. Always, she replied, voice breaking. You saved me first. He tried a weak smile. Worth it. Footsteps approached. Detective Femi Osho, notebook in hand. He nodded at Treasure. Ma'am, need a brief recap. She recounted the garden scene, halting whenever tears choked her. Femi wrote silently. Thank you. Mr. Peterson, when you're stronger, we'll speak again. Alan whispered. Take care of her. He squeezed Treasure's fingers, then slipped back under sedation. Treasure stepped into the corridor just as a tide of notifications burst across her phone screen. Social media had erupted. Hashtag Peterson scandal. Hashtag toxic queen. A gossip blog headline flashed. Lagos billionaire run over by wife. Love triangle with maid. A second banner asked, domestic worker or homewrecker? Netizens split 50-50. Photos of the blood-stained driveway trended within minutes. Comment sections boiled. Some defended Treasure. She's the victim too. Others hurled slurs. Gold digger deserves jail. Treasure's hand shook. She tucked the phone away, breathing slowly. Focus on Alan, she told herself. Noise can wait. Police holding cell, Ikoyi division. Natasha paced, designer blouse wrinkled, mind racing. She replayed the moment. The look on Alan's face, the sickening thud. She gripped the metal bars, knuckles white. He'll survive, she whispered, pleading to no one. An officer slid open a slot. You're trending, madam. Hope you like attention. Natasha's eyes darted. She thought attention was her currency. Now it felt like chains. That night, news anchors filled screens. Tech magnate Alan Peterson was struck by a vehicle allegedly driven by his wife, Natasha Henry Peterson. Sources cite marital dispute and possible infidelity involving a domestic worker. Drone footage of the mansion looped beside studio panels debating domestic violence, employer-employee boundaries, toxic relationships among the elite. Hospital, 2 a.m. Treasure dozed in a plastic chair. Alan stirred, wincing. Treasure? She woke instantly. I'm here. I need you safe, he whispered. I'm not leaving. He closed his eyes, relief loosening the lines of pain. Treasure threaded her fingers through his, silent promise shining in her tears. Outside, the fluorescent corridor buzzed, a fragile stillness before courtroom storms and media crossfire. For now, Alan was alive. For now, Treasure held his hand. And somewhere in a cell, Natasha faced the echo of her own rage. The sound of tires over stone, over trust, over the love she could never nurture nor destroy without destroying herself. Natasha's bail hearing took place 3 days after the incident. Reporters thronged the magistrate court in Igbosir, cameras flashing as she arrived in a plain navy suit, nothing like her usual designer flair. Inside the small courtroom, the judge's gavel echoed. Mrs. Henry Peterson, the judge said, "You stand accused of grievous bodily harm. Bail is granted at 10 million naira, passport surrendered, and you will have no contact, direct or indirect, with Mr. Peterson." Natasha's jaw tightened. "Yes, my lord." Outside, journalists shouted questions. She forced a meek smile. "I'm deeply sorry for what happened. I love my husband and pray for his recovery." The video trended within the hour, but most comments were icy. Too little, too late. Restraining order. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Alan sat in a wheelchair beside Detective Femi Osho, signing papers. Femi slid over one last sheet. Restraining order. If she calls, texts, or even likes your post, we'll know. Alan's hand trembled only slightly as he signed. "Thank you, Detective." Treasure watched from the doorway, relief softening her features. Later, she pushed Alan's chair into the rehab garden, where frangipani scented the air. "She can't come near you now," Treasure said. Alan exhaled. "For the first time in years, I feel safe." The divorce papers. 2 weeks later, Natasha sat opposite Alan and his attorney in a sleek Victoria Island conference room. Her own lawyer whispered frantic suggestions, but the prenuptial agreement was ironclad. She left with only personal belongings and her maiden name. Alan's attorney slid the file forward. "Sign here, Ms. Henry." Natasha's voice cracked. "Alan, I built your image. We were Lagos royalty together." Alan met her eyes, steady, sad. "You built a brand. You broke a marriage. I wish you healing, but our story ends today." Pen scratch paper. Natasha wiped a tear, rose, and walked out to the clicking of paparazzi shutters. Public apologies. Over the next month, Natasha launched a remorse campaign. Tearful interviews on breakfast television, handwritten notes posted to Instagram, even a charity pledge to raise awareness for anger management. On Morning Chat Niger, the host leaned in. "People say your regret is a PR stunt." Natasha dabbed at mascara. "I hurt the man I love. All I can do is beg forgiveness." When the clip aired, Alan sat beside Treasure in his Lekki living room, ankle wrapped in physio tape. He muted the TV. Treasure asked softly, "Does it sway you?" "No." Alan reached for her hand. "Sorrow isn't change. A new mission." During recovery, Alan reflected on other men who suffered in silence. With Detective Femi and a team of social workers, he launched the Harbor Foundation. At the press conference, he addressed the packed hall. "Domestic abuse is not limited by gender or wealth," he said into a forest of microphones. "The Harbor will provide legal aid, counseling, and safe housing for abused men and vulnerable employees." A journalist raised a hand. "Is this motivated by your own experience?" Alan nodded. "Pain taught me empathy. Today, I turn pain into purpose." Treasure by T. That evening, Treasure met Alan in his study, sketches tucked under her arm. "These are incredible," Alan said, flipping through designs. Ankara jumpsuits with gold piping, flowing evening gowns named Lagoon Sunset and a Koi Breeze. Treasure bit her lip. "They're only dreams on paper. Dreams deserve runways." Alan replied. The harbor's incubator fund will back your label, if that's what you want. Tears pooled in her eyes. I want it more than anything. Within weeks, a quaint studio opened in Surrelier. Seamstresses hummed over machines while Treasure adjusted a mannequin. Billboards soon showcased the first collection, bold letters reading Treasure by T. Hand-sewn hope. Social media erupted with praise, from Maid to mogul. Private union. As Alan's physiotherapy ended, he surprised Treasure with a sunset boat ride on Lagos Lagoon. Lanterns glowed against the rippling water. Alan knelt, carefully, still healing, and opened a small wooden box. Inside lay 2 simple platinum rings. I once believed love was endurance, he said, voice thick. You taught me love is peace. Will you marry me? Treasure's reply was a whisper and a laugh tangled together. Yes, yes. They chose a secluded beach on a lash island for the ceremony. Attendance limited to 20 friends, the harbor staff, and Sister Amaka from the orphanage. No press invited. Phones sealed. Palm fronds framed the aisle. Waves applauded in the distance. Sister Amaka blessed them. May your home remain gentle and your voices always soft. Alan and Treasure exchange vows. Alan, you mend what is broken and call it beautiful. Treasure, you saw value in the girl who polished your floors. I will spend my life polishing your joy. When they kissed, a drone, sent secretly by an overexcited cousin, captured the moment. The next morning the images leaked. Treasure's lace gown billowed like foam. Alan's linen suit glowed in gold dusk. Twitter trended hashtag Peterson wedding and hashtag from wounds to wings. Comment after comment cheered. Finally, happiness deserved. Natasha saw the photos while scrolling in her rented apartment, ad jingles playing on a flickering TV. She closed the app, palms sweaty. First gala. 3 months later, the Harbor Foundation hosted its inaugural gala at Eco Hotel. Treasure stood in a crimson jumpsuit of her own design. Alan wore a tailored tux, walking stick now ornamental. In his keynote, Alan addressed 500 guests. Our hotlines have fielded 1,200 calls in 10 weeks. Tonight's pledges will double our shelters. Applause thundered. Treasure joined him on stage, flashing a shy smile. Cameras clicked relentlessly. A reporter called. Mrs. Peterson, any message to young women watching? Treasure glanced at Alan, then spoke firmly. Kindness is power, and power stitched with kindness never unravels. The hall rose in a standing ovation. Alan squeezed her hand. Quiet night, full hearts. After the gala, they returned to the mansion, now warm with art and soft lighting. In the kitchen, where it all began, Treasure ladled pepper soup into 2 bowls. Alan tasted it, eyes closing in delight. Secret ingredient? Treasure grinned. Still roasted IRU. They ate in comfortable silence. Rain tapped the skylight, but no storm lived inside these walls anymore. Alan opened his leather journal, its pages now half filled with hope, and wrote, I once feared shards would define my story, but gold flows through the cracks, and her name is Treasure. From the garden, the restored hibiscus swayed, petals bright against the night. Somewhere beyond, headlines buzzed, critics debated, and cameras flashed. But inside this kitchen, 2 healed hearts beat quietly, proof that justice clears the ground where new love can grow. Natasha Henry, no longer Mrs. Peterson, no longer the social media darling dubbed hashtag Toxic Queen, arrived at the cramped office of Crestview Supplies just before 8 a.m. She wore a faded gray suit that once might have looked elegant, but now sagged at the shoulders. The lobby smelled of instant coffee and printer toner. A cracked clock ticked too loudly. Morning, Natasha. Mr. Adeli grunted, carrying a box of copier paper. Good morning, sir, she replied, forcing a smile. Her desk was a narrow counter squeeze between the staircase and a squealing water dispenser. She booted up an aging computer that took forever to load. A stack of invoices waited beside a chipped ceramic mug that read World's Best Boss, a charity shop find she used because there were no spare cups. The phone rang. She lifted the receiver. Crestview Supplies, good morning. How may I help you? A client's impatience flooded the line. Your driver mixed up our delivery again. Fix it. I will resolve that right away, sir, she said, scribbling a note. When she hung up, sweat dampened her collar. Two interns in bright shirts chatted near the photocopier. Did you see Treasure by T's new lookbook? One asked. The other squealed. Yes. She and Mr. Peterson. So elegant. I wish I had their life. Natasha's pen slipped. Ink blotched the invoice. She stared at the dark stain, mind drifting to a different life. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, endless clothing racks. In a memory, she stood above everyone, ordering. Now, she collected paper jams. Flashback 1. The lamp. Natasha blinked, and the dingy lobby transformed into that sunlit living room from 2 years earlier. She saw herself in a silk robe hurling a crystal lamp at Alan's shoulder. Smash! Porcelain shattered. Rage felt delicious then. Present day, Natasha squeezed her eyes shut. A coil of shame tightened in her stomach. Natasha, Mr. Adelique's voice snapped her back. The delivery mix-up, did you log it? Yes, sir, I'm on it. Lunch break. At noon, she took her stale jollof rice to the back steps. Harmattan dust drifted through the alley. She scrolled her cracked phone. A sponsored post filled the screen. Luxloom Presents. Alan and Treasure Peterson. The face of timeless grace. They stood against a gold backdrop. Alan in a crisp white suit, Treasure in an emerald gown that shimmered like early dawn. Their smiles were calm, secure, light years from the fear Natasha once saw in his eyes. Comments overflowed with heart emojis. Natasha's throat tightened. A coworker named Beezy appeared, tearing open a meat pie wrapper. You know them, right? The Petersons. Natasha's voice was barely audible. I used to. Beezy laughed. They say Mrs. Peterson used to be his maid. From zero to hero. Inspiring, I beg. Inspiring, Natasha echoed, forcing to rise past a sudden lump in her throat. Flashback 2. The garden. She remembered bright hibiscus blooms and the soft gasp when she caught Alan kissing Treasure. Her own scream echoed in her ears. You think you can walk away? Then the uncontrolled roar of the engine, the violent thud. Natasha gripped the stair rail, knuckles white, as nausea rose. A delivery biker honked at the alley gate, jolting her back to the present. Lunchtime was over. Afternoon rush. The copier jammed again. Natasha knelt on the floor, tugging at crumpled sheets. Toner smudged her fingers black. One page held a faded logo. Peterson Technologies. Recycled paper from supplier. Irony stabbed her. She remembered launching that logo with fireworks on Victoria Island. Now she couldn't even afford the fuel to go there. The door jingled. A courier brought new catalogs. Sign here. She signed, hand trembling. The courier frowned. You okay, Auntie? I'm fine, she whispered. Quitting time. At 6 p.m., Natasha shut down the computer and locked the cash box. Outside, traffic roared. She walked to the BRT bus stop, heels clicking on uneven pavement. Vendors called out, Gala, pure water. Neon lights flickered on. A billboard stood across the road, towering above Danfo's and Kikine Peps. It was the same Luxloom campaign, but 10 times larger. Alan and Treasure glowed against Lagos dusk, their fingers intertwined, rings glinting. For a moment, the street noise faded. Natasha heard only her heartbeat and a faint whisper of former applause. She crossed at the zebra lines, eyes fixed on the billboard. Horns blared. She barely noticed. Standing beneath the giant image, she tilted her head as if facing a judge. A nearby street vendor arranging earrings muttered, Fine couple. ABI, noticing her stare. Natasha managed a tiny nod. The vendor leaned closer, curious. Auntie, you know them? Natasha swallowed. Once a long time ago. The vendor smiled kindly. Life turns, Shah. See, as God lift them. Natasha hugged her cardigan tighter. A memory flickered. Her own face on a magazine cover titled Lagos Lioness. She had relished that crown. Now she could barely afford a comb. Flashback 3. The courtroom. The memory came unbidden. Alan's steady voice in divorce court. You built a brand. You broke a marriage. She had glared then, thinking him weak. But his calm had been strength, a strength she never learned. Final realization. Lights changed. Pedestrians hurried. Natasha remained, staring up until the timer counted down to 0. She pressed a hand to her chest and whispered, "I had it all, and I destroyed it with my own hands." Tears slipped down, unnoticed in the humid air. No camera zoomed in, no journalist rushed over. Just passing strangers, the smell of suya, and the rumble of night buses. The billboard spotlights brightened as daylight faded, making the couple appear almost celestial. Natasha exhaled, a long, shaky breath. Her shoulders sagged, as if releasing years of tension she no longer had the energy to carry. A bus to Ojalegba hissed to a stop. Conductor yelled, "Last seat. Enter quick." Natasha wiped her cheeks, stepped back from the curb, and climbed aboard. The door clanged shut. Through the dusty window, she saw the billboard shrink, the glow dimming behind traffic. She pulled her thin jacket closer, settled onto a cracked vinyl seat, and rested her forehead against the glass. Inside the bus, a radio played Corride Bello's Godwin. Passengers hummed. Natasha closed her eyes, letting the lyrics wash over her. Words about grace, gratitude, joy. She felt none of those things yet, but the melody was gentle, kinder than her thoughts. The bus lurched forward. Streetlights streaked across her reflection, a woman hollow-eyed but still breathing. For the first time, she did not push the thought away. This was her fall, yes, but maybe not the end. Redemption began with truth, and she had finally spoken aloud. The city blurred past. Natasha pressed her palms together, not in prayer, exactly, but in acceptance. The wheels rattled. Horns blared. Life moved on. Outside, the billboard glowed for others. Lovers holding hands, tailors chasing dreams, billionaires healing, and Natasha, alone at the back of the bus, watched it disappear behind a bend. Darkness seeped into the cabin, broken by red brake lights. Natasha sat very still, breathing in, breathing out. She did not know where hope lived now, but she knew where pride had led her. The knowledge was heavy, but it was real. The bus engine roared up the bridge, and the screen of our story faded, first to the faint orange of Lagos night, then to black, leaving Natasha's silhouette, solitary against the window, traveling toward an uncertain dawn.